to be with you again. I'll start out with an announcement again, lest I forget. We have a square dance coming up on Saturday, May 18. We're calling it a hoedown, whatever. It's fun. And I said Vittles at 5 p.m. after the 4 o'clock Mass, at any rate. And dancing, square dancing, at 6 o'clock. So come and enjoy. I don't know if you have to buy tickets, Scott, ahead of time. I don't think you do. I think you can buy them at the door, but whatever they are, they're never, our things are never too expensive. I think that's the only thing right now. I don't think you can see this any earlier today than, in fact, we're having May crowning in church tonight between 6 and 6:30. You're welcome to come if you see this at that time. The scripture we share for Sunday, I wish it were the following Sunday. The following Sunday is Mother's Day, but it's merely our fifth Sunday, I think, after Easter. Yeah, sixth Sunday. Can you believe it's also the feast of Saint Mary Mozzarella? I didn't know there was such a saint. Saint Mary Mozzarella. But anyway, the readings are so filled with the word, just the word. Love, 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 which should have been, as I say, perfect for Mother's Day. There was something else I wanted to share with you, though. About today, the day Scott and I are doing this podcast. It's May 1, Wednesday, first day of May. Of course, this month we dedicate to Mary, May and October. But wouldn't you know, on the first day of May, it happens to be St. Joseph's feast day, St. Joseph's Feast of the Working Man. That wasn't a solidified feast in the church until Pope Pius XII in 1957, and he initiated this feast really to combat communism, which on May 1st always celebrated the Feast of the Worker, not a feast, but a festival for the worker to honor the state. And of course, the church, came against that policy over and over and over again, and we did it officially through this feast day by honoring St. Joseph the worker, and thus honoring the working person, and not the job itself or the state itself. We just should be aware of that. Not so incidentally, I have to bring up to you that in the reading for St. Joseph today, it speaks of Jesus' brothers and sisters and names a few of each. And I'm just curious how you personally handle that when you're talking to people who do not believe in Mary's virginity after giving birth to Jesus. The church, of course, has been very strong and consistent in insisting that Mary was a virgin before, during, and after. That's the Council of Trent back in the middle of 1500s that made that statement. So how do you explain that church's belief to other people? The way we've majorly handled it, because people never used to ask questions, they weren't familiar with the scripture. But the term brothers and sisters out of the ancient languages or Hebrew, even, I'm not sure about the Greek, but certainly the Hebrew and the Aramaic, brothers and sisters is a generic term, meaning any blood relative. And blood relatives back in Jesus' day usually lived together in the same little villages, same little communities. And all blood relatives were regarded as brothers and sisters, although, of course, they distinguished immediate blood. Um, so, yeah, if you were a relative, you could drop in at any time for dinner, for instance. You were one of the family. So, indeed, Mary could have so called been mother to many relative kinfolk, we might use the term today. Okay? Let me read the gospel for this coming Sunday, the sixth Sunday. John chapter 15, verse 9 through 17. This is just the gospel. Count the number of times that the word love comes to Jesus' lips. He said to his disciples, as the Father loves me, so also I love you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you this, so that my joy may be in you, and your joy might be complete. This is my commandment, love one another, as I love you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I no longer call you slaves, because a slave does not know what his master is doing. I have called you friends, because I have told you everything I have heard from my Father. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. This I command you, love one another. That's a lot of loving, and Jesus shared those thoughts, of course, with his disciples, as John has us believe. Anyway, he shared those ideas the night before he died at the Last Supper. So, as we, I think, have shared in the past, love, according to Jesus, is not simply an emotion. It's not something you see on billboards or in movies, or the stuff of which fairy tales are made, although there is a certain dimension of love involved in all of those. But the love Jesus speaks of goes all the way to the cross. Sometimes brides and grooms will choose this reading for their wedding, and then I challenge them and say, this isn't romantic love we're talking about. We're talking about Jesus letting us know, love one another as I love you. And then he goes right on to say, no greater love than this, has anyone, than to lay down his life for another. And so brides and grooms, of course, are, usually they're how should I say, they're passionate about their love. And the passion makes them say, of course I would do that. So I would say, let's say they're Rick and Elaine. So I say, Rick, on your wedding day, you escort your wife out of the church, and there is this bus zooming by. And Elaine is stepping out in front of it accidentally, and you throw yourself in her path to prevent her from being killed, and you are killed. Now, of course, that's a dramatic way to lay down your life for your spouse. But instead, Jesus is likely to ask you to, so to speak, do that every single day of your marriage, over and over and over again. Lay down your life for the other. I told you about this being the feast day of St. Joseph. You know, Joseph is very quiet, very humble in the Gospels. He never speaks a word, not one word. So you can imagine that he probably was a more contemplative man. I'm not saying he never spoke, but how difficult, how challenging it must have been for him, one, to live a virginal life with this outstanding woman, and then two, to see himself as the head of the household when he comes to know more and more, day by day, that she is not an ordinary woman at all. If anything, she's extraordinarily ordinary. She is the perfection of ordinary. And how does he tell her to do things any more than how does he tell his son to do things, who is actually the Son of God? But Joseph knew that love meant laying down his life for his family, for her, for him. And so every day, I would imagine Joseph awakened to the joy of not only living for Jesus and Mary, but of dying for them. That's partially it's one of the reasons I suggest to married people that they repeat their vows to one another, their wedding vows, every single day of their marriage, because those vows change in depth, in perception, in experience, in emotion. They change constantly. And so we keep revowing to both live and die for one another, so that we might live in his love now and forever.